Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 228 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today's show is sponsored by Dexcom, Omnipod, and Dancing for Diabetes. You can learn more about the sponsors at juiceboxpodcast.com or in the show notes of the podcast player you're listening to right now. Today I'm going to speak with Alina. She is Lilah's mother. Alina has had a rough go of it, being the mother of a child with type 1 diabetes. Things are getting better, but there were a lot of struggles early on, and she's here to tell us about them. At the end of the podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about nuts and bolts management ideas and everything in between. Please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise, and to always consult a physician before becoming bold with insulin or making any changes to your medical plan. Hey, if you're enjoying the podcast, please leave a rating and a review in iTunes. Well-reviewed podcasts show up higher in searches. Help someone find the Juicebox Podcast. Leave a review and a 5-star rating.
My name is Alina, and my daughter is Lilah. She's 6 years old, and she was diagnosed when she was 2.5 years old.
So you're coming up on 4 years?
Yep. Well, the anniversary is September 23rd.
You're actually at 4 years?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
So we're a little more than 4 years.
Gotcha. Okay. And her name again? I'm so sorry?
Lilah.
Lilah. That's a pretty name.
Thank you.
Very nice. And she's your first?
She's my first.
You have a little boy too?
I have a little boy who's 3, and when she was diagnosed, I was 7 months pregnant with my boy.
Okay. So you've been busy the last couple of years.
Yeah. It's been overwhelming trying to make it through.
Does that overwhelmed feeling, has it been with you the whole time?
So I would say like the first year and a half, or I was really depressed and I would cry every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember people telling me after a year, everything will be better. And then when that year mark came and I wasn't better, then I started getting worried. But like clockwork, at a year and a half, I woke up and I realized that my daughter was still happy.
Yeah.
And she was all bubbly and excited, and that gave me some peace.
Yep. I think it's incredibly important not to set kind of false timelines for ourselves about stuff like this. And I did the very same thing, by the way. I had it in my head. At the end of a year, I'll understand this. Why I picked a year, I don't know. Why didn't I?
Everybody told me a year. That was the golden time.
The magical number. Why wasn't it 9.5 months? You know what I mean?
Right.
Why a year? So then at the end of the year, I panicked. I didn't do what you did. You made it out 6 months later. I panicked. I was like, okay, 2 years. I was very forgiving. I was very forgiving of the situation. I was like, why don't we just give it another 12 months? It turns out none of those things were the answer. For you, the answer was just recognizing that a lot of this was how you felt, not how she felt.
Yeah, I would look at her. She was so happy. In front of her, I had my game face on, and I said, it's no big deal. I was always trying to make it not a big deal, and she picked up on that, which is good. Even now, I say, do people ask you about your monitor? She goes, yeah, but I tell them it's for my diabetes, and
it's no big
and
deal.
That's what it is.
Yep. No, I think any way you can get them to it's no big deal, to thinking of it as just part of how things are and not some horrible drain on them or a thing to be embarrassed about. Any way you get to that is great, because that's an incredibly valuable lesson to teach a child or an adult living with type 1. Is that you can't spend, you know what, it's funny, I just got done speaking at a thing this weekend, and I was all done, and I was completely exhausted, and I did a morning breakfast where we talked about being bold with insulin with a small group of about 60 people. Then at lunch, I did 500 people in the main hall. And then right after that, I ran into a Q&A, and I must have talked to another 200 people along with some other folks on a Q&A panel. And even as I was leaving, I felt completely exhausted, but I had a t-shirt left over. So I took it down to the kids' room to just give it to somebody. And as I was walking out, there was a teen room, and I went in there, and I chatted with them just for a couple of minutes, and one of the kids said that they don't pre-bolus, or sometimes don't bolus at all for their meals at school because they're embarrassed for people to see them, with their giving themselves insulin. And this was just a person with a pump, not injections.
Yeah.
And I told the whole room, I said, listen, nothing can be as important as your health. You can't let someone's opinion or a sideways glance from somebody or even being embarrassed get in the way of your health. Those people will be long gone later in your life when you're having trouble because you just didn't want to bolus in front of them.
I know. And from the get-go, I would check her finger in public because I didn't want a whole life of hiding, and I didn't want her to have a complex. And so I think that's working out well. And then I took her to a diabetes camp recently, and everybody's doing it out in public, so she feels a little more, doesn't feel as alone.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely believe in the free love version of diabetes. So, it's a 60s reference, isn't it? Look how old
I was born way after.
Me too. I told those kids in the room, like, do any of you listen to the podcast? And a couple of them raised their hand, and I said, is it seeming like a bad idea now that you see it's an old man doing it? they looked at me like, yeah, kind of. No, I think that's spectacular. I once wrote a whole article about hiding. There was somebody on an airplane who got yelled at for like checking their blood sugar, giving themselves insulin in public, and it made me so angry that they were told to like go, shuttle off to a bathroom on a plane.
Yeah.
Give themselves their insulin there. And there was no harm in what they were doing.
I mean, going back to like the early years with her is she was in a preschool, and they came up with the lame excuse of, parents don't want to hear about a girl's blood being checked, so they kicked her out of the preschool.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was a private preschool, so they didn't receive public government funds, so they were free to do whatever they wanted to do.
And they could discriminate against your daughter for checking her blood sugar because they thought other people wouldn't want to hear that was happening in the room.
Right. And it was such a battle finding a preschool for her. I would say maybe like 6 places rejected her. Nobody really wanted to deal with it because, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then,
by the way, I get that. I get if it's somebody who's like, look, we're not qualified for this, or I don't feel like I could take on that responsibility. That I at least understand a little bit. But, to stigma, because imagine she's your oldest, and she's 2.5, and now she's being stigmatized and told like, no, like get away, dirty, ew, and that's now the problem you're dealing with early in like building a family. I imagine, how long were you married when you had her?
I was married 2 years prior.
Oh, so you're building a family, and there's your beautiful little girl, and this is happening. Do you think that was part of the depression?
For sure. Like I felt like everyone, just like what you say, I felt like all the adults were afraid. And I literally, for one preschool, did all the training, like did outlines, did all the charts. And the day before it was supposed to start, they said, no, we're not equipped to handle her.
So they were a yes, and then they were a no?
Yes.
Do you think the preparation scared them?
It did scare them, but I didn't know any other way to simplify it. I kept trying to simplify it, but then in the end, there were some details that are important.
When you look back now, do you see how those details probably they were like, okay, this is a lot?
I totally get it, but I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
I got you. No, I don't blame you. I'm just saying it's interesting what hindsight does, because I can look back on some of the conversations I had early on, and I think, there was a crazy person standing there explaining diabetes to those people.
Yeah.
Right? Because isn't it what happened is you thought of all the myriad of possibilities, and you felt like you had to explain what each and every one of them was.
I did. It was even confusing to myself. So I didn't even have it figured out. But then we found a preschool an hour away, and it turned out to be the best place ever. The teacher had no fear, and she never complained about it. And like that was the first time that I could just relax and know that she was responsible. We would text all the time throughout the day. And that was like a very pivotal part, the helping me get over, my depression.
Finding the right person to support you.
Right.
So you started to build your own little community there.
I did. It was an hour commute, so.
Well, I was just going to say, and I mean, you must have really loved it because an hour, I mean, how did Lilah get there? Did you FedEx her in the morning?
Oh my God.
Honey, hold your breath.
There, it gets worse. Once I dropped her off, it took me another 45 minutes to get to work.
So you're commuting almost 4 hours a day just because of the preschool?
Yes.
Oh my gosh! Did you ever consider just locking her in a closet and going to work? I mean, I don't think that's legal, but it does.
I'd worry about her lows. I couldn't do that.
I'd abandon my kid, but she's got diabetes, and you see her blood sugar could get low.
Oh my God!
No, I mean, but seriously, that's an incredible commitment from you to get her to something that was valuable for her and for you. I mean, that's no joke, because you live in California too, right?
In Los Angeles, the heart of Los Angeles.
So an hour and 45 commute, you had to drive almost, what were you driving, 3 miles, maybe 4?
Oh, I don't know. Just too long. Too long.
A lot of traffic out there.
From the Valley, I would drive from the Valley to West Hollywood to downtown LA. So.
Oh, bless you. I mean, that really is, you're a good mom because that's a lot of effort. You know what I mean? Like, just to find a good situation for her. So what changed for you once she got there and she was being supported? I mean, I guess the first question is, what was the person you were leaving her with? What kind of, I guess, attributes did they have that made it a comfortable situation?
She was just super confident. She said, we're going to keep her here. We're never going to ask her to leave. She was just very smart and had no experience with type 1 whatsoever. Yeah. But just didn't complain, didn't make me feel bad. Like I remember in other preschools, I would be in a panic if I knew she was going low. I wanted to protect them from anything. And with her...
I'm sorry, so you were worried now about Lilah and about the people at the preschool in the previous ones. So you were shouldering the burden for all of those people at that point.
All of it. And I that was such a traumatic time for me, being rejected all the time. And then to be accepted finally was such a relief. And I mean, I felt like a normal person again, where I wasn't in fear that she was going to get kicked out.
Yeah. And now, was this just lip service, or were they actually good at it? Like, were they just be like, don't worry, everything's going to be fine, and then everything wasn't?
She had no idea what she was doing, but I trained her and I texted her throughout the day.
She was open to doing that with you.
She was open, and she's like, she just wasn't scared, like you said. Like, fear is, Yeah. But anytime I look for a babysitter or anything, I need to know that they're not scared, because I can't work with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's too limiting. It just really, I was just listening to something that's going to go up today, which of course by the time someone hears this will be 6 months ago, but it'll go up today. And I was saying, even just slowing down to pause a little bit, being scared to pre-bolus is an example. If you just pause a little bit, it's too late. You've missed your window. That fear with diabetes is, you have to obviously understand what you're doing, but then from there, there's no moments of pause. Just, do what you know is right and go. And that fear freezes you. It messes everything up.
And, a lot was going on at the time. My son, he was born in December, the end of December of 2014. And then he ended up in the NICU for just a myriad of reasons, and nothing that serious, but he was there for 10 days. And this is all while we're trying to figure out how to care for Lilah. So it was crazy time.
I was going to say, when he's born, she's only diagnosed a couple of months, right?
Yes. And I just found out from a friend that there's something called a CGM, and I pushed my endo office to get the Dexcom and a pump, and they were telling me the whole spiel about wait 3 months, so you're used to injections. And I said, that's crazy. I'm about to give birth. I need help. I need technological assistance. And so I finally got those devices, but I got the CGM like right before I gave birth, and I got the pump maybe a month afterwards.
Okay.
So it did end up taking 3 months, but it could have been longer if I had just waited, like they said.
Right, they would have made you wait 3 months, and then it would have taken 3 months. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to text Arden about a bolus she needs. Omnipod created their pod for anyone with insulin-dependent diabetes. If you start today with the Omnipod, you can say goodbye to needles and pens. If you have diabetes and your body requires insulin, you need to know about Omnipod. It can make your diabetes a smaller and more manageable part of your life. I'm talking about people with type 1 or insulin-requiring type 2 diabetes. Those people and the caregivers of children and adults with diabetes are choosing pod therapy as a simple, smart, and discreet way to control their insulin and manage their diabetes. With pod therapy, you have a proven, reliable insulin management system that can provide up to 72 hours of continuous insulin delivery. It all starts with their tubeless design and a wearable pod that is waterproof, discreet, and controlled by a personal diabetes manager. And the PDM can help you accomplish everyday tasks like carb counting, bolusing, temp basals, and much more. One of the things I love the most about Omnipod is that they don't make you take some guy's word for it. Yeah, my daughter's been using one for 11 years and we love it. But you don't have to trust my word. I mean, you can say, yeah, that makes sense. That guy seems to know, but I'd like to know for myself. Well, you can. You go to myomnipod.com/juicebox. You fill in your name and your address, and Omnipod will send you a peck in the mail. That's not a kiss. That's a pod experience kit. That's right. You're going to receive a free, no obligation demo of the Omnipod that you can try on, wear, and make the decision for yourself. myomnipod.com/juicebox, or the links in your show notes, or at juiceboxpodcast.com. Arden is full on mature at this point, and the last number of days, her blood sugar has been insane.
Oh my gosh.
So, something that would take, say, 13 units was suddenly taking like 26 units.
Wow.
I was doubling her basal from 1.4 to 3 an hour, and that wasn't enough. We had double basal and boluses, and everything was a mess. And last night, she's supposed to get her period yesterday. And this morning she wakes up and her blood sugar is like 4 o'clock in the morning. It's like getting low. And so I'm trying to bring it up. And all of a sudden now I can't bring it up. So I'm like, okay. So I finally get it up and I send her off to school and it starts going up again. And now I'm like, okay, is this like
a trend?
Like it's going to go up like crazy up like it has been? Or is it going to now mimic the lower thing and like back to normal? And so I got really aggressive in the morning, but then that made her low. And so we fought with the low, got that insulin through her, and then headed into the lunch. And I was like, oh God, what do I do? So I pre-bolused not as much as I should have, but not by much. I didn't kind of, I didn't wimp out completely, but her blood sugar is like 160 now, an hour and a half after lunch. And so I'm going to try to get her to push it down here.
So we have a different situation going on. I think something happened with the breakfast bolus and it didn't go through. Okay. And now she's at high.
Oh my gosh.
So my husband is going to rush over and change her pod and give her another correction.
She's now in kindergarten?
She's in kindergarten. And we have this whole system where for certain hours of the day, the nurse and I monitor her. So I'll text the nurse if she needs to treat a low, and then I have an aide come in that I pay for like 4 hours of the day who can bolus her for insulin and monitor her because Lilah is so dependent on adults.
So this person just rolls up for a couple of hours and handles Lilah's blood sugars for you?
Yes. God bless her.
And you don't have to be involved at all. She's
oh my God. She's So I had one aide last year, Brianna, and then I have another aide this year, Kaylee, and they're so great. At first, of course, I was texting, like, to make sure they treated lows and everything, but they're so on top of it that it's the first time that I can work. I actually work full time, and so I can actually focus on my work instead of my Dexcom.
Good for you. That's amazing.
And the rest of the time I text the nurse, so I'm always monitoring.
And I just clicked around and looked here so I could see the dates, but what is it now? Right now it's November 2018, which will throw people off when they're listening in the middle of 2019. But in January of 2019, I'm going to interview Brianna.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so you're on and then she's on. And we won't give Brianna's story away because
yeah,
it'll be more fun to hear it there. But I think that is really cool. So let's we'll backtrack a little ways.
Yeah.
So she's diagnosed, it's only a few years ago. You obviously didn't leave the hospital with the CGM because you had to fight for one, but how are you giving insulin? What did they give you on day one?
Oh, syringes. We only stayed a night, and in the morning there was like a 2-hour lesson that I had no idea what was happening, and no one in my family was paying attention, and I was so overwhelmed, and they said, just go home and give these injections. Good luck. And my parents were actually in another state on vacation.
Right.
And so I called them frantically to fly back, and they're like, you'll be fine. You know, they didn't really understand.
They're like, don't ruin our vacation.
I'm like, no, every hour I'd call, fly back, I need you. And then they finally flew back, and they're like, oh, this is what you're doing. This is intense.
And we didn't understand all that. Hey, you were probably pretty far into placenta brain by that part of your pregnancy, right? Like
my body was shaking from the diagnosis. I was shaking. I was worried I'd go in like early labor. Mm-hmm. And I called my OB. He's like, you'll be fine for another 2 days because the fluid is circulating.
You're like, none of this is comforting. None of it.
I'm like, wow, okay, I have 2 days to calm down.
Were your parents at least on like a really great vacation where we could all feel like, all right, I wouldn't have left either?
I don't recall where, but they were really upset about leaving, and they went a year later to the same place.
Oh, that's very nice. Listen, it's a great example, right? Like, you're telling them what's going on, and they're like, oh, diabetes? That doesn't sound that serious.
They're like, you're okay. You'll get medical help.
It's all going to be fine. Please, we saved for this trip.
I know, they said that.
Did you feel like you owed them a trip after, like, later when, like?
Well, they kept bringing it up. So I'm like, just go to your damn location again. And so they did, and now they're fine. But yeah.
That made me laugh. Okay, so you had syringes, and that was obviously, especially in the early. I mean, I remember the first couple of days. It's ridiculous. You really feel like someone handed you a gun. And you had never shot one before, and
I'd never given an injection before. Like, oh my God,
it's incredible,
terrifying. And I remember my husband gave the first injection, and he started crying. He never cries, like that. He just did that to his daughter, and then my daughter was in the hospital, was screaming like, "What are you doing to me?" And like that scream is still in my head. Her saying that, "What are you doing to me?" She's little. She was tiny.
Someone was just telling me the other day how they used to have to pin their kid down to give them injections, and I remember I had to do that with Arden sometimes too.
Yeah, we did that too.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Well, okay, so are you still injecting now?
Oh no, we use the Omnipod.
Oh, cool.
Because once the Animus Ping went out of business, we switched to Omnipod. Yeah. We have the Dexcom G6, and we use Fiasp insulin.
Oh, cool. Oh, how is that? How did you?
I love it. It made a huge impact on Lilah. Like, the corrections work so much faster. Mm-hmm. And that kind of was the beginning when things started getting better for her.
Yeah. Well, what insulin did you start with? Let's badmouth that one first.
Novolog.
Oh, same company. They don't care. And so, all right. Yeah. So you moved to the, is it Fiasp or Fiasp? I don't know.
I don't know.
They should spell it in a way where it's not ambiguous. But anyway, the faster active. I think that, by the way, that's
insulin aspart, right?
That's where the name comes from. Faster insulin aspart. So That's really sexy. But nevertheless, the naming. By the way, naming for drugs is incredibly complicated. The FDA has a say in it. You can't make it can't sound too much like another drug. There's like
Yeah, I
a ton of
bet.
rules about it. But nevertheless, so you how long you've been using that one, the new one?
As soon as it came out, so it's been
I was
a
gonna say
couple months,
you've been at.
and
Okay, as soon as they said it was okay for pumps, or no, it's not
as
okay for
soon,
pumps yet.
as soon as they came out with it on the market here, and they said it's approved for adults, so my doctor just did,
Just wrote the
what
script.
she needed to do.
Cool. So yeah, because it's not. I don't think it's FDA approved for pumps yet, but people are using it in pumps.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know why more people don't use it. It's really amazing, and the pre-boluses are so much shorter.
How about
And
lows later? Are you seeing any lows later?
um, we had lows before, so we don't see any lows later. It's just everything is faster. Like the corrections, everything just goes at a faster rate, which is great because we would sit there for like 3 hours and wait for her numbers to come down.
Yeah.
Everything that you say you shouldn't do.
I'm glad. Well, listen, it happens. You got to just figure out how to stop. But when it first happens to you, there's no real way to. You can't just guess. It's. You need to wait until somebody kind of sometimes explains it in a way that you're like, oh, that makes sense. I'll try that. Okay, so you're using an insulin pump, using Omnipod, using a Dexcom. Are things like you said? Things have been better. Were things not good in the beginning? Like in the very beginning, were like blood sugars crazy? Were you guys struggling with that constantly?
So, I mean, she was diagnosed really early. She was a 7.9 A1C,
Mm-hmm.
but such huge spikes and drops. And we were at Children's Hospital, and they have a really great program there where I could speak to a nurse every day if I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I literally would email the nurse every day with her numbers and ask her what settings I needed to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I would change the settings constantly. And, for like a year. And the poor nurse, she went on vacation for 2 weeks. And while she was gone, I realized I could just do it myself. And she came back, and I barely ever contact her anymore. But I was really glad she went on vacation that one time.
That's excellent because I thought like your parents' vacation, you're gonna be like, I made her come home, and
No.
yeah, I mean honestly, that really is the truth. Like it's, I heard a million people say it this weekend, but you have to be able to make these adjustments on your own. Plus, have you learned that making them as frequently as you were probably wasn't as
Yeah.
valuable as you thought?
Totally.
Yeah.
What happened is, like half a year ago, she had an 8.1 A1C,
Mm-hmm.
and that just traumatized me because she had always been in the low sevens. And I realized perfecting the settings had done nothing for her, and maybe I should just improvise a little bit more. And that's when I started listening to your podcast, and I only change settings maybe every 2 weeks, but
But
a
you're still,
big difference.
and when you're saying settings, you mean insulin to carb ratios or basal rates or what?
Basal rates, insulin to carb ratios, and ISS.
Okay. I only change that stuff as Arden's growing. When she gets bigger and requires more insulin, I move her basals up and her,
Yeah.
to be honest, it was her insulin to carb ratio. I don't even really, I don't know what that is, but it's not that I don't, let me start over. I know what an insulin to carb ratio is. I don't use it. I don't pay attention.
Right. It's still in the back of my head that I want to prevent low so that the school doesn't kick her out. I still have that in the background.
Oh, that's sad. I'm sorry.
It is sad.
Yeah. No, I feel badly when you said that. Just the idea that stuck with you. I understand how it could have, but that it's stuck with you for so long now that you're not in that situation anymore is a good indication, by the way, of why you don't treat people like that. Because it's difficult to shake stuff sometimes. And excuse me, people put these thoughts in your head, and it's difficult to get away from. But I hope you can let go of that one because, I mean, you don't want her to get low because you don't want her to get low, but not because somebody's gonna get mad at you. That I don't want you. I don't want you living like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I would say, I usually, this will be fun. I usually unplug the phone during the podcast, but because it's election day, I'm
Oh.
hoping that I get like a robocall from like a famous person, but instead it's gonna end up being like my mom or something like that. I'm gonna guess it's my mom
Have you
because
called her lately?
well, she and I were texting on Sunday, and I said my mom has the ability to text her. And see, she won't give up.
That's a really loud ring.
Yeah, well, it's an open floor plan, so it's echoing
Ah.
around. You would think she'd stop. This is fascinating. I'll edit most of this out, but you and I will sit here, then I'll tell you the story about my mom.
My goodness.
So my mom can, and I'm sure everyone says this, but my mom calls at the absolute worst times always. I used to believe that she had a camera in my house and she could see when was the most inopportune time, and then she would pick up the phone. And and I don't know that that's true. I don't believe she's technologically advanced enough to accomplish that. But I do believe that on some level she can feel me
Yeah, she gave
busy.
birth to you.
Right,
She
right.
knows.
Well, I'm adopted. Not even.
That's right.
Yeah, right. She basically just picked me up like at a food mart or something like
Aw.
that. I don't know where she came to get me at. But anyway, my point is she calls at the worst times. So the reason I texted with her this weekend, I'm on stage getting ready to start, and I get a text from my mom, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like,
Yeah.
Mom, I'm in a different state, about to speak to a whole bunch of people." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And then, but it's not just "oh, okay." Then she still asks the thing she called
Yes.
about.
Yes, I have. I know what that's all about with my mother-in-law. I said, I'm with a client right now. Is it urgent? She goes, okay, just 1 minute. I need to tell you about the pants that I bought Lilah.
That's my mom. My mom does that. My mom and your mother-in-law might be the same person then.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah, Mom, I can't right now. The house is on fire and Arden's dying on the floor. I have a lot to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't mean to bother you. Just real quickly, when I look at my computer and this thing pops up, like, no, not now. Anyway, and why did my answering machine not pick up? I have a lot of questions, but we'll get past those right now. Anyway, my point was I didn't unplug the phone for our podcast because I'm hoping some famous robocall calls and I'll get it on my machine. It'll be like, "Hello, I'm Barack Obama," or something like that is going to happen.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was hoping for. Anyway, instead we got my mom's ring 19 times. I'm very sorry. Are you ready to see your glucose levels in a whole new way? Well, the Dexcom G6 eliminates finger sticks for calibration and diabetes treatment decisions. That's right. The Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor helps you see where your blood sugar is going and how fast it's getting there, with no painful finger sticks. Now, if this sounds like the work of wizards and witches to you, and you've never heard of the Dexcom CGM, let me tell you a bit about it. CGM stands for Continuous Glucose Monitor. And I'll tell you what, this beautiful little device is at the core of how we help my daughter live unencumbered and happily every day with type 1. I'm recording this around 9:30 on a school night, and Arden's blood sugar is 71 and stable. That's right, my daughter's going to go to bed tonight with a blood sugar, I'm guessing, at about 78, and it's going to sit there as steady and as peaceful as can be. And if it doesn't, if it tries to go up or down, I'm going to get alerted. And then I'll make a decision and take action. But if it stays nice and stable there at 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, wherever, a restful night's sleep it will be. Now, come on, that must sound good to you. And by the way, I'm telling you what my daughter's blood sugar is right now, but she's not with me. How am I doing that? Because I have Dexcom Share. That's right, my daughter's using a follow app on her phone, and I can see it on mine. That's available for Android and iPhone. Come on, Dexcom.com/juicebox. Go find out about it now. It's going to change your life. You're in a really interesting position because you're holding on to some thoughts from years ago. You're obviously, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems to me like you're still nervous because the aid so that Lilah doesn't have to wait with 5 or 6 other kids I mean, that's I think a lot of people would have heard that and been like, the kid could just stand in the line. But you said she can't stand in the line. So does she can't stand in the line mean something bad's gonna happen if she doesn't stand in
No,
the line?
but
Or
like
you don't want her
she
to
needs
stand in the line?
her pre-bolus at a certain time, and sometimes those kids could take a while, like half an hour, and then her lunch is over.
Oh, no
Like I
kidding.
can't. They only have like a half an hour lunch and a half an hour recess.
And
So
the nurse can't prioritize that?
she doesn't want
I
to.
gotcha. All right, I hear what we're not saying. I got it.
Yeah.
Your nurse sucks. I got it. Okay, I get what's happening.
No, but she tries, but you know.
Yeah, well, listen, she tries. I tried once to dunk a basketball. I got nowhere near the rim. I suck at basketball. That's not the point. The point is, I hear what you're saying. We don't want to badmouth anybody, but
No.
there's a situation that exists where Lila's going to be standing around going, hungry, need my insulin, and lunch is over. And you definitely don't want that. Like, either her pre-bolus will be too late, right? Or she'll waste away all the time. Now, she's in kindergarten, so she's what? Is she 5 or 6?
She's in first grade now.
First grade. Is she 6?
She's 6, and let me just tell you, she's so hyper and like not focused that the aide sits with her at lunch to make sure she eats, or else she would just talk and talk and talk with her friends.
That sounds right, though. You know, like I think I was probably like that when I was 6. I might be like that now, to be perfectly honest. Because that's what I was gonna ask you. I mean, I'm assuming this isn't how you want to do this forever. So, I mean, you've listened to the podcast a lot. Are you considering texting when she's able to?
Yeah, well, right now I'm texting the nurse, the aide, but Lila's just not,
She's not ready for that yet.
ready for that. And I'm just like holding out hope for the Omnipod Horizon to make my whole life better.
Yeah, I think it definitely will, by the way. But if, say, Horizon wasn't on the horizon, sorry, say it wasn't coming, do you think at a moment that when you thought she could handle it, would you
Yeah, of course.
take the nurse out of the chain and just be between you and her?
That's the goal.
Yeah, no, I think so too. That's excellent. But I mean, at 6 years old, there's a lot of time still before that's going to be.
I know.
Yeah, before that's going to be something you can do. I mean, do you have a time in mind where you think she's going to be okay, or are you just going to wait and see how it goes?
Yeah, I have no idea when she'll be mature enough to handle it. I keep asking. Some people say 10, some people say 12, some people say 18. So
keep in mind, some people told you it would take a year for you to completely understand diabetes. So I wouldn't. Yeah, I think it's going to be when you see it in her. You know, when you're like, okay, she'll handle this. She'll answer my text. She'll do what we talk about. She won't get distracted while we're talking. And keep in mind also, please, it still happens. You know, I mean, Arden's 14. She's a freshman in high school. And how long ago now did I tell you I was going to ask her to bolus? She hasn't answered me yet. So
yeah,
it's been like 10 minutes. It's not, I mean, this is just a little bolus to bump a blood sugar, so I'm not worried about it. If it was more dire in some way, then I have other ways of, getting a hold of her.
No, but Lilah is still so little, just learning how to write. I don't think, and read, right? And so I wouldn't trust her to read words on the pump.
No, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't either. It takes, okay, I finally got a hold on here. It takes till when it's the right thing to do. It can't be, you can't rush something like that. You can't say, oh, she understands some of the words. Like I was talking to someone the other day whose child doesn't really, I think, speak English that well. And the mother was like, and she's like, I got to wait till she gets all this better because she's like, she's 9, but she can't read. Oh, I know who it was. I think it was like, I forgot. It was somebody I'm hoping to get on the podcast, but I think she adopted her child, and the kid's still learning how to read English. And she's like, she can't read it yet. It kind of confused me for a minute. I was like, you have a 9-year-old that can't read? I was like, that seems odd.
That's a problem.
And then I realized what was happening, and I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. But that was her barrier as well, which is I can't 100% trust that even what I'm saying is being picked up. But I'm going to tell you that once it is, texting is absolutely one of the best diabetes tools I've ever found in my entire life. It changes everything. It makes things more immediate.
And I wonder with the new technology if we'd be able to bolus her from our cell phone in a room when we're not anywhere near her remotely.
So that's if that ever happens, that's far off. And
Really?
I would think the first time, look, I have no idea, but that's the FDA has been in the past rigidly against that. And my understanding through conversations I've had recently is that they're softening on the idea. So I think once they've now, very soon the Dash is coming out from Omnipod.
Yeah.
It'll be out when this goes up. But all that is a lockdown Android phone that speaks
Right.
wirelessly, to the pod. So I mean, I think once the FDA saw that, they're like, well, what's the difference between that one and this one? And
Well, that has to be within 20 feet of her?
it'll still need to be
Yeah.
probably in Bluetooth distance, yeah. And so,
Yeah.
yeah. When are they going to let you bolus from your bedroom from another device that's not directly connected to the pod? And the answer is, I mean, who knows? You know what I mean? Like when you stop and think about it, if you wanted to be able to send, my car has a remote start, right? So I go into an app and I remote start my car. That means I send a signal, it goes up in the cloud, and there's something in the car that receives that signal. But your Omnipod pump, the pod itself's never going to have anything in it that can receive a signal from, like from the, from a satellite or from the internet. So, and you couldn't build that kind of technology into the pod. Like, do you imagine how expensive that would be to build that technology into the pod and then throw it away every 3 days? So there's going to be something, you'd probably have to still have your Dash with you. Like, say your kid had his Dash with him, maybe the Dash could be connected to the internet and you could remotely tell the
Yeah.
Dash. But still, that's up to the FDA to loosen up on. I do know the pump companies want that. Some of them are trying to, move the FDA in that direction, but I think it's going to take some time.
Like the most common fight between my husband and myself is who's going to go up and bolus her? And I don't hear that a lot on your podcast, but like that's like all we fight about is like your turn, no, your turn, because we have two-story house and we watch TV downstairs and we're so tired and yeah, it's like
that happens here. I mean, it used to happen a lot more frequently than it does now, but I oh my God, I know you're watching television, like pause, I gotta go upstairs. And then
yeah,
it's 11 o'clock, right? And you're like, oh my God, this was my life. Like this was the part of my day I was excited about.
yeah,
Sitting here like a lump watching this television show, and even that
I
I
know.
can't get through.
See, but he's the one that gets up at night.
Oh, no kidding.
And yeah, and he sleeps in and then goes to work later. He has his own firm, so he's able to do that. And then I have to wake up early every morning to drive Lilah, so I'm out at night.
Gotcha.
And so he holds that over my head and says, I do the nights. You better go up now and go with her.
Well, you could probably persuade him, but you probably don't have enough energy to persuade him, so I guess not, maybe.
I try to bribe him. It doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, that is really cool, though, that you guys have shifted things around. That doesn't surprise me. I mean, when you told me in the beginning that how far you're driving just to get her to a decent place for care, I would think you would go that extra mile for the other stuff. And it's cool. So your husband pops up overnight. He gets the broken sleep. So
Yeah.
then he sleeps a little extra in the morning and has that freedom to go into his own business a little later in the day.
Yeah, because he's able to fall back asleep, and I can't do that. Like, I tried in the beginning, and I would just be awake the whole night, just worried.
Anxiety. I was going to say, is it anxiety that keeps you?
Yeah, definitely anxiety.
Yeah, I did last night. The girls like passed out, and Arden's, like I said, Arden's blood sugar was incredibly high for a couple of days, and so they were watching television in my room and they fell asleep together. And when I went upstairs, I thought, I'm just going to leave her here because I'm probably going to be fighting with this blood sugar all night. And then it was, it was kind of fine, and then all of a sudden low, and I was like, oh, so I was just fighting in a different direction. So I did what I did around 4 a.m. to stop this 65 diagonal down that I had going on. And, as soon as I saw the diagonal down arrow go away and it came back to 70, I went right back to sleep.
Yeah.
I was just like, goodbye. But I have had nights like the ones you described where I look and I think I don't trust what's about to happen. And then I'm, before I know it, I've watched 3 episodes of something on Netflix that I've seen 6 times already. And because you are worried, like this doesn't seem like it's going to hold. I've definitely had that experience more times than I'd care to remember.
And I have to be at work, in the morning. I just need sleep.
Yeah, you have to. Well, listen, you can't. One of the things in the middle of my talk, the other day, really just talking about insulin, I made sure to stop and talk to the parents in the room for a second and tell them that the exhaustion piece is huge. Like I found myself saying, when you get exhausted, it happens in an incremental way where you don't kind of feel it coming. And then once you're there, you're trapped there. You're like on the, that Stranger Things where they're all behind the walls. Like you're behind that wall now. You don't know how you got back there, and you definitely don't know how to get out, and you almost don't know what's happening to you. And so you're lost in this fog. It's really important for people to cover for each other if they can, and to get as much sleep as possible.
And during the day, I'm the one monitoring her. Mm-hmm. So that's my whole work day is like monitoring and working.
How much trouble do you have like passing off at night? Like, do you have trouble looking at your husband and being like, okay, it's your turn now, and not thinking about it? Or are you tired enough that you're able to do that?
Come again?
Are you like do you feel anxiety when you pass the baton, so to speak?
No, I used to. Oh my gosh. Like when I wasn't with her, I was freaking out. And then one day my mom was like, I'm watching her. Go relax.
Yeah.
And now I can just switch it off, and I'm happy to pass the baton. I'm like, I'm going to bed. Good luck.
Well, there are people I know who are listening who I hope heard that, because I said to someone this weekend, they said, "Oh, are you not watching Arden's blood sugar while you're here?" I'm like, "I'm in Ohio." I'm just like, "No, I'm not watching it." Like my wife's watching it. When my wife's at work, she's not watching it. She's working, and I'm taking care of it. So,
right.
And is it necessary for you to look at it as often as you like? How frequently do you think you're aware of her blood sugar?
I mean, I look every 40 minutes or so.
Okay.
Because sometimes the nurse is with other students and she doesn't see it. So we're like each other's backup.
So let me ask you this: where are the settings on her CGM? Like, where are you alarmed for a low, and where are you alarmed for a high?
For me, I put it at 85, and I think the nurse wants it slightly higher, so it's at like 95. But I told her not to treat a low with fast-acting glucose unless she's under 80.
Okay. So
she knows that, but it just puts her on alert. And then the highs, I don't even keep a high alert because I'm always watching her numbers. I mean.
But if you put a high alert on, then you wouldn't have to watch. Because then when you weren't being alarmed, you would know you were somewhere between 85 and that number.
Well, what happens is she always goes low mid-morning. She's never high. And then by lunchtime, she needs the bolus. And if she needs a correction, that's when the aide does it. Mm-hmm. And then at 2 o'clock, the aide is still there and can give a second correction or in between temp basals. So someone's always watching.
Okay. So I have two thoughts. And of course, you don't need to take my thoughts as anything other than my thoughts. But I would practice on the weekends. I would take a high threshold and move it down to, 130. And not look at that thing unless it beeps. Help yourself a little bit. Because if she's between 130 and 85, I'm assuming you'd be very happy with that.
Yeah.
Right? And so instead of being anxious all the time, wondering when she's going to get higher, just know that it'll tell you. And then let go. You can just let go in that space. And, the lows, the way you're handling the lows is completely reasonable. I mean, she's, 6 years old. She's in first grade. I'd start thinking about a low around 80 if I was you as well. We don't do it till 70, but Arden's also older and, we've been at it longer and stuff like that too. But I think your low threshold's terrific. I think the way you're handling that sounds amazing. But I think for your own sense of what? Sanity, I think if you did that other thing, you would learn pretty quickly that you can trust it. It'll tell you when she goes over that 130 and then do something. That's a
good idea.
That's what I would do. I need you to be more relaxed.
Thank you.
Seriously, I want you to be happy.
Too.
You do too.
But I have this, I have a younger son who needs my attention also. Mm-hmm. So that's another wrinkle is that I literally spend more time with my daughter than with him, and I'm always feeling guilty about it.
All
you know?
all you gotta do is move that high threshold down, and then
Okay.
go find
Is
your
that the
son.
answer to all my problems?
It actually might be. Seriously, when you think about it, like I'm not looking at Arden's blood sugar right now. Arden's blood sugar is where I know it is. I've done something. Like I told you, she was a little elevated. We've done something. We've put insulin in. Insulin doesn't work in the first 10 minutes, the first 15 minutes. It's not going to bring a 160 down to 90 in the next half an hour because I haven't used too much. I know how much I've used. I trust what I know is going to happen. So I don't think about it again. And if I look up at it again, it would be an hour later. But even at that, if it's not beeping, then she's not over 120 and she's not under 70. And if she was dropping fast, then there are alarms for that. Do you have the quick drop alarms on?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's not beeping, you're good.
I'll try that.
Yeah, like let go a little bit. Just a tiny bit. Pretend that alarm is your glass of wine. Just sit back with it and relax. When she's in that range, just nothing else counts. That's what I want for you. And I want you to figure out a way to trick your husband into going upstairs and bolusing at night.
I know.
I don't always do it, but I do it a lot. And it's because I'm the one involved. Do you think that's more why you're the one that goes up? Because it's still your shift? Like for
if anything, he's the one that goes up. I just a couple times that I have to.
It really bothers you when it happens to you.
I want to watch my reality TV shows and in peace.
Which one's your favorite? Arden loves.
I like the housewives. I like to hear them argue because it's so outrageous.
Guys, I'm going to be at the Dancing for Diabetes Touched by Type 1 event on May 18th in Orlando, Florida. If you're in the area, I highly suggest that you come out. There are going to be a lot of wonderful speakers there. I mean, I'll be the best, but there's going to be other people. That Chris Rudin fellow is going to be there. You know him? He was on the show recently. Anyway, I don't know what everybody else is going to talk about, but I'm going to talk about being bold with insulin. I'm going to talk about how to use insulin to get the results that you want. All you have to do is go to dancing4diabetes.com to sign up. And by the way, if you make a suggested donation of $10 between now and May 17th, 2019, put the word Juicebox in the notes of your donation, you will be entered in a drawing to win a phone call with me where you can ask me absolutely whatever you want. 2 people will win a 45-minute phone call. 1 lucky person's going to get a 1-hour call with a 30-minute follow-up. It's a great organization, be a great place to make a donation, and who knows, you might get lucky with the phone call. Unless you don't want to talk to me, and then just make the donation and don't put in the word Juicebox. By the way, if you don't want to make a donation or you don't have access to the internet, you can mail in your entry. Isn't that fancy? Again, you can get all that information, the address and stuff like that, at dancing4diabetes.com. I hope to see you in Orlando on May 18th. It's going to be a lot of fun. I got some swag to give away, too. Might be some magnets or buttons or something like that. You never know. dancingfordiabetes.com.
Yeah, I'm actually, we're both lawyers, so we deal with a lot of I deal with domestic violence victims, so I deal with a lot of heavy issues. So when I get home, I just want
really
to watch something that's uncomplicated.
My wife says the same thing. Because my wife's a very bright woman, and sometimes some of the things she watches on television throw me off about her a little bit. I'm like, why are we this invested in Big Brother exactly? And she's like, because there's nothing to think about here. She's like, this is as petty and silly and stupid as anything in the entire world.
It's amazing.
I can laugh at these people and then walk away.
And like Teen Mom, I'm just like yelling at the girls, like, how could you be so stupid? Protect yourself.
I don't watch a ton of reality television, but one time, I'm dying to say this on the podcast for some reason, there's one reality show about, I think, Amish people.
Yeah.
Right?
Breaking Amish?
I don't know. All I know is I saw it one time. And
I like that.
And this girl left, like, you get this rom something, like there's a
right?
Where you're allowed to leave. You know what I'm talking about, even though we don't know the word, right? And so she's away from her family. And someone asks her about how she keeps her teeth clean and so white, and she shows them she has like a gallon of bleach, and
Oh
she dips her
no.
toothbrush in the bleach and brushes her teeth, and I'm
See, well,
thinking,
that's entertaining.
you know what? I was mortified and entertained at the same time. I was like, that person is brushing their teeth with straight bleach. I know that's not okay. And by the way, I don't know for sure, but let's just go out on a limb and say that's not okay. That's very dangerous. You don't put bleach in your mouth, right? But there
Yeah.
she was, just all like, and as I was watching, I was like, boy, this is fun.
Yes.
I have to admit, it was weird and fun at the same time.
My poor husband, he just watches sports on his phone to pass the time.
But he sits with you, right?
He does out of love.
That's a good
So
guy. Yeah, see, that's good. You guys have still only been together like what? I'm guessing now, 7, 6,
almost, it's 9 years.
Yeah. Well, if he hasn't stopped sitting with you after 9 years, I don't think he's gonna stop.
Oh,
That's
he's
sweet.
the
Yeah,
best.
yeah, he's the best. He's got his phone off to the side trying to watch a basketball game, and
Yeah.
you're
And I tell him it's too loud.
and you're yelling at the teen moms. What's the most egregious thing the teen moms do, by the way?
They keep having more kids. Oh my God.
That's the funniest thing. Well, I guess that is their biggest mistake.
Put a glove on it.
Well, now though they're making money, aren't they? Like, isn't that their living now, being a teen mom?
They still pick really terrible men.
Well, yeah. Well, who's gonna like?
They're destroying children's lives.
That I know is true. Okay, so I gotcha. All right. So yeah, if you're on a reality show about being a teen mom, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you're probably not doing like a great job for your kids. Although they are making money, like I guess it's better than not making money, right? Oh my gosh, they're having more kids with different men.
Different men.
Yeah, well, I guess if the first guy can't afford the first kid, he's not gonna be able to afford the second one.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question, because, and not to deviate too far.
Yes.
You were talking about your job. You're an attorney and you work with domestic issues or battered women, or what is it you do?
Battered women. So I work for a domestic violence shelter, and I'm in the legal headquarters, and I help women with restraining orders and custody, divorce issues. So all of the most dramatic things you could think of.
Well, that is really important and beautiful work you do. That's to be congratulated. Have you always been in that part of?
Yeah, I've always really enjoyed family law. It just a lot more meaningful to me than like slip and falls on a street.
How long have you been doing it?
Let's see, 10 years.
Wow. Do you get a real feeling every day like you're helping people?
I mean, I am really impacting their children's lives. So once I had children, I started really thinking about the children, the effect of, abuse on them, less so on the mother. That's not really politically correct to say, but I'm thinking a lot about the children and like what effect it has on them.
It's how it strikes you personally when you're looking at the situation. Like the moms, that story is terrible, but it feels, I guess, multiplied for the children.
It is. So I find it like my duty to protect them. So I'm trying to help the moms make the right decisions to protect their kids.
Well, that's really wonderful. Seriously, I'm assuming as a lawyer, there are things you could do that would probably make you more money. So that is really wonderful of you. And now we're going to get you to protect yourself a little bit, right? So we don't want you all freaking out all the time wondering about blood sugars.
Put that high alert.
Move it down. By the way, here's the other thing about the high alert. Can we talk management for a second here at the end?
Sure.
There is data that shows that the lower your high alert is, the lower your A1C will be, because you react sooner to blood sugars with less insulin. So let's say with the high alert pushed all the way up where it doesn't beep until it's 400 and it's left for you just to go back and check. If your blood sugar should jump up sometime if Lilah's blood sugar jumps up inside that 40-minute window where you're not looking, and it ends up going from where you saw it last time, say at 90 and nice and stable, and all of a sudden it jumps and it goes 120, 150, 180, and it's jumping up straight up, and you don't.
It's harder to get down for sure.
Right, and not only is it harder to get down, but you use more insulin to get it down, and when you use more insulin, you end up low later, which is why I end up saying a lot of times that highs can cause lows.
No, we've been using, like, since I've listened to your podcast, We literally went down from an 8.1 A1C, and then 2 endo appointments later, she's a 6.9.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so we're like, I'm really utilizing what you say about stopping the arrow and not waiting 3 hours, and temp basals, microbolusing. So if anything, sometimes I feel like I'm too aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's okay. I mean, I understand. You'll figure it out.
And so I really been using what you said. And at first I thought, no way that, when I first heard your podcast, I thought it doesn't apply to me, because I thought the only way you have Arden's A1C so low is you probably give her like low carb, tasteless food, because that's what I had seen some of my acquaintances do, giving them like sugar substitutes.
Right.
And that was like not appealing to me or to my daughter. So when I heard she ate like regular food, that was like a big breakthrough moment for me. Like, wow.
I'm glad. Well, I'm going to tell you then the moving your your higher threshold down isn't just for you. Then it'll be for this. It'll help you with this as well. It really will. I think the sooner you react, the less insulin you react with, the quicker your blood sugar comes back to where you want it, and the less chance you have a low later. So, practice on the weekends at first, but I'd start around 150 and then shoot for 130 eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have been close to an hour, and this was very chatty, which I liked, but we didn't really talk about anything specific. So did we not cover anything that you wanted to talk about?
Just that the challenges of having a child with type 1 who's very high energy and little and 6 years old. She recently had a fracture in her foot and had to not run around so much. Mm-hmm. And her numbers were so stable. And it made me realize how much it's just her running around that is making everything chaotic.
No kidding. Yeah, well, exercise can help bring your blood sugar down. So when you have less exercise, you could see it be more, was it stable but higher?
It was just great. Perfect.
It was just great. Perfect. Well, listen then. Tie that kid's feet together when she gets home and tell her she's got to sit on the couch and watch Teen Mom with Mommy. And that's...
Yeah.
Well, I hear what you're saying. The activity can really make a difference. Especially when it's not like a sport, right? Where it's
not planned. She'll just randomly run around, and that's what's so hard with a young child. Like, I can't predict what she's going to do next.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is that it's not like it's a soccer game between 2 and 4. It's she's sitting perfectly still, and then all of a sudden she's running around like a lunatic, and then she comes back, sits back down, and then does it again and again.
Exactly. How do you know her?
Yeah, well, please. I had kids. Mine were a little more mellow than that, but they still did crazy stuff that I thought, like, where did that come from? Like, they were just over here, now they're gone, Yeah, well, listen, she'll get a job one day. That'll calm her right down.
Yeah.
To take all the fun right out of everything.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And just to tease a little bit, right, I'm gonna be interviewing the first teacher you met at the preschool that went well.
The aide, yeah.
The first aide, right? And she's gonna have a little more knowledge about type 1 diabetes now than she did even when she was with Lilah. Is that right?
She's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks also to Omnipod Dancing for Diabetes and Dexcom. You can go to dexcom.com/juicebox. myomnipod.com/juicebox or dancing4diabetes.com to find out more. There are also links in your show notes and at juiceboxpodcast.com. Don't forget, if you make a purchase at realgoodfoods.com and use the offer code JUICEBOX, you'll save 20% on your entire order. Let me take a moment to thank everyone. April was the most popular month in downloads ever in the history of the podcast. And that is month-over-month growth that has been going on for well over a year and a half now. Every month stronger than the month before. And that is incredibly important as we come up quickly on what will be the 1 millionth download of the Juicebox Podcast. And when that happens, there will be a celebration with prizes and giveaways and fireworks. There probably won't be fireworks. But there will be giveaways and prizes and stuff to do. I cannot believe 1 million downloads is coming this year. It's insane. I don't know what the most popular diabetes podcast in the world is, but if I had to bet on which one was, I think I know where I'd put my money. And that is because of you guys. It's because you share the show with other people. On social media, I see you guys do it all the time. Facebook, Instagram. You're always sharing the show with other people, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. It just is the reason that the show continues to grow and flourish. You guys are helping me. I hope I'm helping you. I will definitely be back next week. Oh, you know what, too? And here's a good enough place to say this. Remember when I said the Diabetes Pro Tip series with Jenny was going to be 10 episodes? Pfft, forget that. Jenny's going to keep coming back. I don't know how many episodes there'll be by the time we're done, but it's going to be a lot more than 10. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.